Right, good evening everybody. So tonight we working into the concepts of where exactly fascia fits in as a system. I've had quite a few questions this week in relation to kind of not necessarily what exactly fascia is, but more how one would benefit from the influence of having fascia. Um, Another commonality that I've had within the spectrum of the clients that I've been working on is the concepts of the different applications of fascia. So just to recap on the talks that we've done the previous weeks, they are available on the Facebook page. You just need to pop in, go and have a look for them underneath the section of videos, and they are all there just to do some recap information and listening in on the topics that we've discussed before. We're going to be doing a lot of topics. I've got a second camera running just in relation to trying to get the videos onto YouTube for those people who are not with us on Facebook. So those will run on YouTube quite soon, and the link for the YouTube channel is on the Instagram. If you guys are needing the link for the YouTube channel, just comment below and I'll pop it onto our Facebook page. But you can always research on YouTube for the ICB studios and you'll pick up our information there. So tonight, essentially, the topic that I'm discussing in relation to the fascia is exactly where does fascia fit in. So fascia, as we've mentioned, is a informative and high performance communication system. It is a living system. So the system itself is influential, responsive, and provides response into a complete and integrated diversity of systems, organs, and dimensional aspects of interaction of the system. So when we work with the fascia, we work with a concept of essentially supporting the communication systems, helping the pathways of the communication systems to run clear and most importantly consistently clear in their function and in their interactions. So when we're working with the fascia from a treatment application, as we've mentioned in the previous videos, we're working with the concepts of priority, so allowing the body to have its freedom of expression, the natural expressional state of being we mentioned in last week's video. So when we work with the fascia, we're essentially supporting the natural flow of communication and information feeds in relation to their desired pathways or optimum or prioritized pathways, to support natural, effective, optimum functioning and communication within the body. So essentially what that supports is the natural, healthy communication and information pathways within the system. So any malfunction or blockage or diseased tissue state or dysfunctional tissue state essentially will be supported in the clarity of the information feeds that are provided when we work with the information pathways provided through the fascial zoning. So in the fascial zoning that we work with a complementing musculature support of the Chinese elements. So we work specifically with the fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. Each of the elements hold an authenticity and a very deep truth in relation to the system, if I can say, effectivity or synthesis, to provide numerous levels of support, information, and essential optimum functioning. So within these systems, just as a very general recap with the 5 elements, each 5 element will have a natural emotional state of being. It will have a pathological emotional state of being. They also hold a certain consciousness, approaches and understandings. And then they'll also be specific to certain roles within the body, so certain aspects of the body that the individual elements govern. And then also in relation to the body areas that it works with with in relation to the yin, which is more of a nourishing aspect, and the yang concept, which is more of an activity state. And then these both have their musculature orientations, which have, how can I put it? The prioritized focus of support in the musculature positionings. So when we look into the concepts of the yin yang, the emotions, the areas that are governed, the progressive cycles in relation to the life cycles, the general movements that they support, there's so much information that we can work with in relation to the fascial influences. So when we take into consideration the zoning of the fascia, when we work with the fascia, essentially, no matter where in the body you're working, as we mentioned before, there's not one aspect of the body that is not influenced by another aspect of the body. So no aspect of the body is left untouched when we work with the fascial system. So essentially, when we work with the fascial system, you're working with a completely and fully integrated system and approach to body communications, body functioning, and this really goes onto a complete synchronicity of all aspects of being. So here we did touch on this in the previous videos in relation to the emotional state, the psychological state, mental contributions. We're working with the concepts of the physiological applications and responses. So wherever that fascia is ideally and prioritized in its communication and assistance, that is where the assistance will be. So when we look at the concept of where and how does fascia fit in relation to how the body functions and what we're working with, essentially fascia is a complete and dynamic interdimensional support for the body in all aspects for our everyday functioning. So if you can work or think of the concept or the metaphoric comparison to a cell phone, when we are in a discussion with somebody and we've got really poor signal, we can often hear tidbits of what they're saying, but we can't necessarily link a complete and clear form of discussion. We essentially rely on our assumptions to piece together the aspects or the pieces that we don't hear or that we don't fully understand of what they're trying to impart in terms of information. So the fascial system is exactly the same. So if there are certain aspects of the fascial system that are not in clear communication or support of clear communication and ease of communication and information pathways, those aspects that are compromised will have or receive tidbits of information. So when we look at how the fascia fits in, fascia complements, enhances, supports, and clarifies every point and every aspect of every treatment modality that is essentially offered. So in a sense, if you had to compare it to take a random example, the chiropractic market or chiropractic practices, when you're working on the spine, when they work with the manipulations, if there is a fascial tension point or a trauma aspect in a fascial tissue that is sitting in a spine response, and that aspect is manipulated and it is not ready to work with the processing of that information, essentially with the forcing and the, now when I say forcing, it's just because of the manipulation that is done, the fascia will have a response to that manipulation. So in the response, if that fascia releases the information that it is holding without it being a prioritized aspect of release, the body may recategorize or reprioritize where that information is stored until the person in their way of being is in capacity of working with that information or trauma or experience or memory, active memory, which is the emotionally charged aspects. So essentially what we can look at doing with the fascia, when we run a very basic fascial release and neutralization on the body, and this can be anything from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, however you want to prioritize it in combination with your sessions or your treatments or even just for self-application, the neutralization priority of the fascia when it is applied in how we teach it in the fascial response and integration system, the body will provide what we refer to as a neutralized state. So a neutralized state of being will be the body's essential prioritized form of relaxation or connection, depending on what the body is needing, in its domino effect. So starting with the most important aspect, then moving on to the next important aspect, and so on and so forth, until you've got essentially your linking systems that are in full support of whatever following practice you're going to be applying. So, for example, when you're talking about the chiropractic aspects, if you had to apply a fascial neutralization and release system prior your session, placing that body into a neutralized field of response and connection, you essentially are opening up the full body spectrum and aspects to work with the information that you're going to be following in application. So when you follow the neutralization and the support of the natural expressive state of being of the body with a chiropractic manipulation, it essentially opens that system up to receive the application of the manipulation. So if there are any trauma aspects, emotional aspects, triggers, any form of cellular blockage or fascial jamming that may be there, relaxing into that tissue and opening up communication pathways within that tissue, the body receives a manipulation in a completely different aspects. It essentially receives it as a welcoming practice and as a welcoming transition and opportunity of transition of information. And in that manipulation of the spine, we get really fantastic cerebrospinal fluid moving. You'll get really great neural response and neural feeds. So there again, the two combinations of the practices and the therapy applications are really very effective. With the fascia response and integration, fascial tissue in itself, we've mentioned before, in relation to it being compared to collagenous network or connective tissue. If you are running a fascial session, for example, in our somatology section, just coming from my background, you know, when I remember doing facials on the clients, a lot of my focus in that clientele was the anti-aging, the regeneration of the skin tissue, the application of the tightening within the tissue, general regeneration within the nourishment of the skin tissue, working with deep levels of rehydration, etc. So yes, we can work with really fantastic product applications, but they're all topically reliant on their effect. So if you had to run a fascial response and integration session purely working on the sternum, cranium, and facial aspects, you can necessarily prepare the connective tissue and the collagenous networks for the effective receipt of those products and topical applications to essentially be received in full benefit and optimum benefit of their function, as well as then you're actually applying the fascia integration into the entire body. So if the client is simply having an anti-aging somatological fascial treatment, you're actually benefiting a full body neutralization of the information feeds and information and communication networks. So not only will they be coming in for a really amazing facial and relaxing fascial treatment, you're actually supporting every single aspect of their body communication, right down onto organs, systems, muscles, ligaments, tendons, on all aspects. The fascial response and integration system is designed to influence every single aspect of the fascial tissue. These aspects and influences reach right down onto a cellular level. So it's not always in the visible application and changes that you will see the noticeable differences, but the client will receive internal and interdimensional support in their communication systems and communicative pathways on all levels. So this may even, just from an application of a very basic cranial release in their facial, can actually receive a general relax and calmative effect into their general field and daily application. So the fascial response and integration system is an incredibly powerful and an incredibly dynamic treatment application that is in full, safe, and gentle application. It is pain-free. There is no point of discomfort. There's no point of tension within the body where the client will brace against the application. So really, essentially, what it focuses on is the complete deep neural de-stress and release within the body. In that deep neural release and response, you're allowing the body to essentially reset or pause, reset, and recollaborate all its communicative pathways. So for example, in a Pilates or an exercise application, and this you can do in self-application as well. Very, very effective for flexibility, for musculature communications, activations, neural responses, stabilizer activations or deactivations if needed, and the clarity of which one is needed in which application. But when you work with the fascia response and integration in relation to a fitness application, working with the optimized communicative pathways within the fascia, you're essentially complementing optimum function within tendons, ligaments, muscles, bones, fluids, the central nervous system. And as well as that, you're actually supporting the body in the dynamic composition or the dynamic creation of perhaps new neural pathways. So again, not only are you facilitating an optimal sporting performance within or directly after the fascia response and integration application, but you're providing the body with a deep reprogramming opportunity to provide new pathways of communication to improve performance, to improve musculature output and demand, as well as the regeneration aspect. So not only is the performance and execution of the exercise repertoire or application going to be more dynamic and effective, but you're going to have a increased level of regeneration. You're going to have an increased level of body communication, so the detoxification and the rehydration and the innate ability to rehabilitate any damaged tissue or tissue that needs to be reformed is going to be in full complement and full support. So really the fascia on every single aspect, it just confirms more and more how important it is to work with the system in our everyday application. If you had to compare it to a reflexology session, often with the reflexology, because the applications on the reflexes on the feet, hands, body, wherever the practitioner will be working, often relies on essentially creating a movement within that reflex pathway, meridian, or system response. So, excuse me, if you have a body that comes in a high stress state of being, you're going to have a lot of inflammatory response and natural inflammatory response within the body, which can often present a lot of pain response, a lot of heightened sensitivities, neural sensitivities, and essentially perhaps unnecessary heightened emotional responses. So when running a reflexology session, if you start your application just by bringing a neutralization into the neural feeds and the informative networks in the body, the client has got the opportunity to relax right down onto a deep neural and cellular response level. And then essentially in that relaxed state, bringing the circulatory responses and the body communication systems back into their essential organs and centering of the body, we're working with stimulation and complement of natural immunity function. We're working with complement and natural the natural innate ability of each and every single organ and musculature system to naturally respond to any following practice. So if by running the fascial system prior your reflexology session, the body receives the responses and the activations into those reflexes on such a different level. It responds and receives the nourishment of the touch, of the opportunity to change, the potentials of change that are initiated in the sequencing of the reflexes that are applied. And essentially, it just supports the reflexology session on such an incredibly different level. So instead of the client having to go through the experience of the release of the plantar fascia, specifically when working on the plantar reflexes of the feet, instead of having to go through that pain sensation, they can have the fascial application to the fascia prior to the session of reflexology, so that the fascia is nice and responsive and pliable to the touch, and that for the practitioner as well, in terms of your hand activations and work required, work demand, it is so much more in complement. So, you know, where fascia fits in essentially fascia fits in everywhere. Fascia should, in my opinion, start becoming the fundamental and the foundation of every single practice that it works with. Just seeing from a personal experience in relation to the clients that I've worked with over the past years of applying the system, their bodies, their systems, their sports performance, their environmental changes are so beautifully in complement to everything that we're working with and toward, that the fascia, you cannot do any harm working with the fascial system. How the fascia response and integration system has been designed is to be in full complement of the client's well-being, to be in full complement of your own personal well-being. So when we work in full complement of our own personal well-being, we can only work from a nourishing, complementing aspect. So when we consider the nourishment and the complements within working within the innate wellness of one's body, your body innately knows what to do in every circumstance, in every situation, and under every single demand. So if those communication pathways are supported through natural, effective, consistent, and clear information, informative networking, that innate ability is completely supported. You know, I've been listening to quite a few documentaries on diseased states and strange illnesses that people can't diagnose, and like just the common ailments and sicknesses. And it really has me questioning, because why are we in a constant demand or a constant vulnerability of being in a distressed or diseased or dysfunctional state? Every aspect of the body can be fully supported. It already knows what to do, but it may not have the clear and consistent communicative pathways in place to provide the support that innate healing ability needs. So when we work with the fascial response and integration system, providing those information pathways necessary for those healing processes, the healing process has the optimum support and foundational knowledge to work with and to essentially put the healing in place. So when we look at the concept of healing, I always find the word quite loaded. So when we look at the concept of healing, often I have, from my own understanding through my history of training, it was always an action-orientated word. So I always felt that I would have to do the healing or give the healing or facilitate the healing. And essentially, on some level, yes, that is correct from a quantum entanglement of communication with the client, or working on myself or my kids or animals, however the healing is applied. But when I started working with the fascia, I essentially started understanding that working with the bodies and being in a very gentle, respectful space of understanding that the body that is being worked on, even if it is my own, knows exactly what to do. All it needs is the support of understanding and neural connections in order to provide that healing response and in order to put the healing responses in place. So from a fascia response and integration application, this is where this specific system is so fundamentally incredibly powerful, because we not only connect the body's neural synapses and neural responses, we also provide the body with the opportunity to create new neural connectomes and new neural pathways. Creating that new neural pathway puts the body into a completely different form of expressional state of being. So in the new expressional states of being, optimized communication is a possibility. So deep healing is a possibility. It is a probability, not even a possibility, because we've already interacted with the aspects that are needed for that aspect of healing. So in order for the body to recognize it through the information that is provided, through the connections that are linked up, then it can bring it through into the manifested aspect of working with the natural body's information systems, functions, nourishments, etc. So when we look at how fascia can fit in, fascia I would say if you are wanting to incorporate it into your everyday practice, I would suggest that it is a really beautiful system to just calm your clients, to even calm yourself prior session application, and essentially use it as a information support system. So if you are working with physiotherapy, if you're working with Pilates, if you're working with body talk, if you're working with energy healing, if you're working with Reiki, if you're working with anything, if the body's in a relaxed space of being and in a relaxed expressional state of being, the innate healing and innate communication systems are naturally in place. So by providing the fascia response and integration system for each and every client, we're essentially supporting the return or the reconnection or the re-recognition of the body's natural innate ability to heal itself, to provide a deep cellular regeneration and synthesis of support. So fascia, yes, it is focused on in so many ways. For me and for everybody who is viewing this video, it's really important to find your preference of that application. So if you find a fascial system that is in complement of you in a optimum expression, an optimum wellness, an optimum relaxation state of being, and essentially an effective results orientated session application, then work with that system. Fascia is also with in connection with its zoning and with its influence, the spectrum or the enormity of what is possible within each session is fundamentally huge. There is no aspect that you cannot work with the system. And especially with it being as gentle as it is, it's an ideal support system for children. It's an ideal support system for any application. You can work on your animals, you can work on pretty much anything. But what I find so beneficial is that the simplicity of the system is its effectivity in relation to how you can work with the concepts that are provided, and the different perspective of understanding the body and the body's natural state of expression. You have a variety of applied concepts that you can work with to work with your set of goal-orientated or desired applications. So whether it be internal aspects, whether it be external aspects, whether it be environmental influences that you're looking to support or complement, the clearance of the communicative pathways and the clearance of the communicative influences can help into the environmental blockages that some people may be experiencing. The deep neural and cellular shifts that are provided, working with the cell on that level, you're actually essentially putting the cell into a new expressional state of being. So if that cell goes into a new expressional state of being, it has the potential to re-express itself. And in that re-expression holds the potential to be an optimum, joyful, loving, healthy expression. It doesn't have to keep providing the same 6-cell experience. So when we look at the consideration given to combining the fascia and how the fascia will essentially fit into the concepts of life and everyday practices, I believe that it is something that once you've learned the system, I encourage you to create your own application for how you need to work with it and how the bodies need to work with it if you're working it from a practitioner's perspective. It is something that is so simple, and really, in my personal opinion, there should be no longer a need for the bodies to experience the suffering and the dysfunctional states that they're expressing. There is a system that can support each and every dysfunctional state of being to provide the opportunity for that dysfunctional state of being to receive its innate communication systems and to receive its reminder of who and what it can actually be. And once it recognizes that, to tap into that potential and to tap into that optimum communication system, that's it's massive, and it's really an awesome it's a awesome experience to witness that communication and connection. You know, when we work with the fascia, the body, in relation to the years that it has created all these, I always like to think of it as like a layering of existence. When we work with the layering of existences, there is so much information that goes into that system through every single moment, minute, hour, day, week, month, year, etc. And then you're looking at the ancestral contributions as well. So from a fascial perspective, in relation to achieving optimum wellness and innate ability to heal and reorganize the body's communication systems and functions and responses and reactions and all of that, this fascia response and integration system is so in support of that. So if there are aspects that you're looking to shift or change, you can work with the system. If there are aspects that you would like to implement and renew, you can work with the system. If there are practices or clients within your practice that you find you're hitting a plateau with and you'd like to take them to a new level of connection and communication and activation, this is a system that you can work with. So I really invite you to look into the fascia response and integration system further. We do run regular courses on the fascia response and integration. So it is very much a very simple program and system to work with and to learn. There are no prerequisites. And that is really something over my years of experience that I found quite frustrating, because I constantly felt as though I had to be in a competitive space of being in order to either know my anatomy on a completely different level or know my exercise on a completely different level, to be able to receive the learning and the knowledge base that was being provided by whatever course I was attending. So how I've designed this course is that this course essentially taps into your innate understanding and communication of healing and general communication networks within the body and within the field. So when you tap into that innate understanding, you're essentially reconnecting to your truth, to your authenticity of being, and to your natural state of function. So I would really like to invite you to consider doing the course and working with us and working with the system a little bit more effectively, and see how you can support it into your everyday wellness and life support. It really is life support. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed tonight, and I don't see any questions coming through. So I'm going to love and leave you all. I really invite you to look at the other videos, get a different understanding. We're looking at running informative videos weekly on different topics. If there are different topics of the fascia that you would like to know more information on, or know how to work with, or any specific conditions or symptoms or applications, kids, anything that you want to know about, pop your questions below the video or on our Facebook page, and we will definitely bring that into a discussion or into a video or an information session. So I wish you guys all a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening. For those of you who are joining us locally and it's evening time, I suggest you go look at the moon outside. It is absolutely spectacular. My little man said, "Mom, it looks like the sun, but at night." So it's beautiful and bright and full, and it leaves you in such a high-spirited way to end off the night. So I hope you have all enjoyed the video, and I hope it's provided the information that you've been looking for. Again, if you need any questions or if you want to ask any questions, pop them on our Facebook page and we will get back to you. Have a beautiful evening. Bye.